The James Show Podcast.
The frustrating part about the No Kings protest is, who are you fighting? Is my question. Who's the pro-Kings party out there? Who's the pro-Kings faction? Is there some group I'm not aware of that is pro-monarchy? If you're a monarchist, call the show. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. That's what we're looking for today. That's what I want to start the James Show off with today. I want to start the James Show off with the burning question: who is pro-King? Who out there? We just had to listen to No Kings for a few hours on Saturday, and then for the rest of the weekend, that was all the news coverage. Who are you fighting against? I find this amazingly frustrating because you can't even have a conversation with these people. Why are you out here? Well, we don't want any kings. Well, I don't think anybody does, Gina. So it's not just this, though. You've recognized this in other facets, and this is, I don't know, is this a specifically left-wing thing where they make up these straw men and just beat the snot out of them, and we're over here saying, who are you talking to? Because it's the same argument I've heard from you about Antifa. They're anti-fascist. Well, good for you. I don't think anybody's pro-fascist. I don't think there's any fascist. Who's a fascist? Call in if you're a fascist. 800-288-9227. I want to talk to a modern American fascist in 2025. Is there one in a position of power? And I don't even mean this like generally speaking. I mean, is there one elected official you can put a microphone and a camera in front of his face and say, hey, dude, are you a fascist? And he'll say yes. Is there one? Can you find it? Is it in Congress? Is it in the Senate, the House of Representatives? Is it in the White House? Is it any of the people on the Supreme Court? What about your state legislature, the House, the Senate, your governors, your lieutenant governors? Are any of them fascist? Can you put a microphone in front of any of these guys and say, are you pro-King? Are you pro-fascist? Are you serious? We have a pro-King caller that is that sarcasm? Well, let me finish my bit and we'll take calls. 800-288-9227. Because this is the frustrating thing about Black Lives Matter. Who's saying Black lives don't matter? Is one person out there, if you put a microphone in front of him and you say, hey, do you believe Black lives don't matter? He'll say yes. And I'm sure there's some, I don't know, homeless person or some psycho out there, but I'm talking about in any elected position, all the way down to city council, all the way down to dog catcher. Is there one fascist? Is there one pro-monarchist? I used to tear my hair out. I don't have to do it anymore because the NFL stopped with the end racism in the end zones. Or they did it by the end of last year. They had it at the beginning of the year, but by the time the Super Bowl rolled around, they weren't doing that anymore. And I don't think they're going to do it again this year. They'll still have these kind of ethereal concept messages in the end zone. It takes all of us. It takes all of us for what? What are we, raising a barn after the game? Is that what we're doing like the Amish? You know, it takes 800 guys to frame a barn and pick up the sides. It takes all of us for what? But it used to say end racism in the end zone in the NFL. And I used to think, who are you talking to? First, who's the racist out there? Would they be watching football? Wouldn't you think like that would be their least favorite program on TV? Like if you are a white supremacist, what is the NFL to you? It's a big slap in the face. How do you explain that? Racist? But no, they're fighting nobody. There's nobody you can put a microphone in front of their face in an elected position of power. Are you a racist? He'll say yes. I mean, it's in D.C., it's in Austin, it's in your city council, your city hall, your county commissioner, whatever the heck. Who are you talking to? But like you hear environmentalists work on the same playbook. They're like, so why do you support this position or why do you support these subsidies for green energy or whatever? Well, because I don't want dirty air and dirty water. Well, no one wants dirty air and dirty water. Who are you people talking to? Mark. In Mansfield or Cransfield Gap? Which one?
Cransfield Gap. Hi, James. How are you doing today?
Hey, Mark. Are you pro-King?
I am pro-King. Do you remember when we were in school and they told us how great the Magna Carta was because it took away the power of the king? It took away the power of the king and gave it to the oligarchs who care nothing for the people. The true king is the king in the line of David and Solomon and Jesus. And they're not kings for they're not kings for the country. They're kings for the people of the country. And that's what the difference is. And I'd have to suspect that's the deal.
So you're pro-Jesus, but
no, I'm saying I'm pro-king, and the true king is a king for the people of the country. And we took away the power of the king and gave it to the oligarchs who's been running things forever, who care nothing about the people. The real king in that line is the king for the people. He's not the king of the country or the king of the world. He's the king for the people.
All right. So what's your preferred system of government?
A benign monarch.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I asked for it. That's what it sounds like. There's one. Mark in Cransfield Gap. Mark, does anyone share your view that's in a position of elected power?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, same here. All right. Well, I asked for it. I got it. Thank you very much. Is anybody pro-fascist? Is there any fascists out there? While we're dealing with the No Kings protest, I don't think anybody besides Mark and Cransfield. See, you got one person. He's pretty much the exception that proves the rule. I don't know. I'm kind of suspicious about Train over there. He might be pro-king. But let me hear from you. Are you pro-king? Were you really just totally offended by the protest? Because sometimes I am offended by the protest. Sometimes they're anti-American, or sometimes they're chanting from the river to the sea, which is sort of a rhetorical flourish on we want Jewish genocide. But in this one, they're running around saying no kings. It's like, well, I'm with you, bud. No kings. All right. I don't think we agree on anything else politically, but I'm not offended by this. Who are you talking to? And things went pretty good here. You know, out in Bug Tussle, we actually had a No Kings protest. And, you know, they try to whip up protests across the country as many places they can get to. And I think Bug Tussle is a good metric on whether or not this was a widespread protest. And there was one, and it was decent size out in Bug Tussle. It wasn't like the 10,000 we had here in Dallas, but I can't even tell where they were at. I was looking at some of the pictures online. And there's only like 4 parks in my hometown, so I didn't recognize it. But it looked like there were probably 200 to 300, and that's in a tiny town. So here in Dallas, just not too far from where I'm at now, the biggest number I saw was 10,000 protesters. I did see some video, and it wasn't any of that goofy stuff where some bald lady with gravity, caloric issues, or whatever you want to call it. I'm trying to be diplomatic here. Tries to stop traffic and has to walk backwards as somebody's pushing her with their front bumper. All the silliness was in other towns. So, round of applause, not just for, you know, the normal listeners of WBAP, but at least our protesters aren't as crazy as they are in like Portland or Seattle or Los Angeles, where it looked like the battle scene from Braveheart. Yeah, in Portland, I think Portland had the worst of it. What is with that place? They did like the battering ram. They surrounded some sort of ice facility, and they busted out the front door with the battering ram, and it was glass shattering everywhere, and they had to like evacuate the building. Get a grip, people. There's not even a king. But for these places where bad things did happen, where things did catch on fire, again, not Texas. We did pretty good. But, you know, for an example, in Los Angeles, I saw a report that there were 10 officers that were seriously injured in the Los Angeles No King's Day protest. 10? 10? That's kind of high. That seems like a lot. That seems like, you know, the people who were so concerned about the insurrection on January 6th, and don't you care about they were attacking police? Adorable, though, that it still got labeled mostly peaceful LA riots. Well, it's mostly peaceful protests on January 6th then, too. But they also, the sheriff, I mean, they got to try and downplay it. The sheriff was quoted as saying there was some interesting weapons out there. And look, the word weapon is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. There's a very broad umbrella on what we're using for weapons. So 10 deputies were injured after protesters hurled rocks, Molotov cocktails, and high-grade pyrotechnics at them. Fireworks. Why don't you just say fireworks? Why don't you use normal layman words like the rest of us? Why do you have to talk in code? But when you see 10 officers hurt, when you see property destruction, when you see, you know, cars on fire and stores looted, this isn't a protest anymore. This is a riot. So the question becomes, who incited a riot? Why is there never any responsibility for the groups that are putting these things together when they get out of hand? What's their incentive to not let it get out of hand if they're never punished? If you put together a protest and it gets out of hand, a bunch of people loot a Foot Locker, hurt 10 cops, set some cars on fire. No one gets handcuffs on them and thrown in jail from the organizer standpoint. What's their incentive for it to be more peaceful next time? None. In fact, the incentive is reversed. The more chaos, the more madness, the more fires, the pictures that take up the news on TV, the more their cause gets talked about. We were talking about this more than Iran and Israel being in a missile war over the weekend, and tons of people dying and buildings exploding. Look like missile command over there. So the incentive structure here is messed up until you start looking at who put this riot together, who didn't take the proper steps to make sure it didn't get out of hand. And then, of course, everyone on the ground that was a bad actor, punish them to the full extent of the law. We have the blueprint on what you should do, January 6th. If some guy loitering through Statuary Hall, not even knocking over the velvet ropes, can go be tracked down based on his cell phone data, picked up at his house in Pilot Point, brought back to a federal detention facility, and held for over a year, 160 days in solitary confinement. Again, just for walking through the Capitol building, through an unlocked door, past police who didn't stop him or say nary a word. They chunked a deuce and he walked by and waved. I think we have to start charging these people with crimes. We have to end this idea, well, it was a protest, couple things caught on fire, but okay, it's just a bunch of people looking around watching cars burn. No, these are now not protesters. They're rioters. Whoever put these protests together, they incited a riot. They made a riot. They didn't organize a protest. They organized a riot. When things get this out of hand, this bad, and I'm not saying this is what happened in Dallas. I'm saying definitely Portland and Seattle, probably Los Angeles. But for a lot of these protests, we have to start charging the people who are funding these things. And remember the definition of terrorism. So when we want to talk about domestic terrorism, the definition of terrorism, violence or intimidation for a political cause, for a political ideology, usually on civilian targets. But doesn't that fit? When you're burning cars, when you're setting fire to Teslas to send a message to Elon Musk about you don't like what he's doing in D.C.? Yeah, right. Property damage, violence, intimidation. He's not setting them on fire just for fun. They're not roasting marshmallows. That is an act of intimidation. That is an act of political violence. That is terrorism. So now you have these guys, not only are the organizers funding, organizing, and inciting a riot, they're also funding terrorism. They're organizing. They're terrorist organizers. And I know that sounds extreme, like the guy on the radio is just being hyperbolic because he doesn't want us to turn the channel. No, I'm looking at the definitions of the words. I'm looking at what I saw with my own eyes. And you saw it too over the weekend. You've seen the cars burning. You've seen the Tesla dealerships on fire. You've seen ICE spelled out on the Apple store while guys go in and they rip out all the iPhones and gadgets they can get out of the Apple store, looting the Apple store, looting the Foot Locker. We have to stop pretending like it's not domestic terrorism. We have to stop pretending like it's not a riot. They wouldn't let you off. They don't let you off the hook if the shoe's on the other foot, do they? What happened to all those guys on January 6th? So they're playing for real. We're not. They're actually using the law and the power that they have against their political opponents to crush you underfoot. And when the shoe's on the other foot, no pun intended, you just going to let them skate? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Or don't do anything. Let's just let them get away with it again. And then every time they have a hissy fit, whatever the cause is, whether it's for a George Floyd or a Michael Brown or Palestinian genocide, now we got to occupy a college campus, or now we're upset about deportations, and now we're upset about kings that don't even exist. They're just going to keep doing it. You have to start going after these organizers. You have to start punishing the people. Look, everyone that set a car on fire, we can't go get them. I doubt it. I didn't go. I don't go to protests. It's not my thing. I don't really think that's what the Founding Fathers intended, or really any statecraft intended. If you don't like what's going on, you go stand in the median or in a local park, make a sign and yell. That doesn't sound very productive to me, but hey, some people, that's their lifestyle. That's their jam. And I have no problem as long as you're peaceful, as long as you're not blocking the road, as long as you're not destroying property, as long as you're not spray painting F Trump or F ICE or whatever on property that's not yours. You want to spray paint your own car, go ahead and knock yourself out. But when you see cars catching fire, when you have 10 cops that are injured in the LA protests that require medical attention. At some point, it crosses the line into a riot. And then I think we've done a very poor job of admitting that, recognizing that, and acting on it. Because if there's repeated riots over and over and over and over, and no one ever gets charged with inciting a riot, no one gets charged with funding a riot, or domestic terrorism, because it could very easily meet the definition of domestic terrorism, you're incentivizing more property destruction, more injured cops, more cars on fire. And I think we have to start taking this serious. If you organized a protest here in Dallas, it didn't get wild. There was no cars that caught on fire, nothing spontaneously combusted. You weren't blocking traffic for most of the time. And when the cops told you to move, you moved. Good for you. You guys are great. But for these people in like Portland, where they stormed an ICE building, they broke out the front door. And remember, we were told that, storming through a federal building, that's an insurrection there. Those people have to be charged with inciting a riot, or you're just incentivizing it to get worse and worse. Cassie in Argyle, you're on WBAP.
Hi, James. Yeah, why has something not been done? Nothing has been done for many, many years, many riots that turn out like this. If it means that the bigger cities, where the bad riots usually happen, if it means that they need to be supplied with those big, huge water trucks that have the barrels on it, barrels and barrels and barrels of huge barrels of water, and high-powered hoses, and immediately when they start this, in fact, the trucks are sitting there.
All right, hang on.
The riots are scheduled to be taking place.
Listen. Tap the brakes, Bull Connor. We don't need to hit them with water hoses. In all these other towns, like in Dallas, we didn't have crazy people going nuts. Not because we hit them with water hoses. It's because the leaders here don't want it to happen. The cops already can shut it down at any time, whenever they want to. But if you're in a hyper blue jurisdiction like a downtown Portland, those people you would be hitting with water hoses are your voters. Those people that you would have the cops pushing them out of the street. You agree with them. You want.
No, we're not going to get the okay from the mayor or from the governor. These are going to be appointed because our president says they will be. Nobody gets to say, no, we're not going to have those trucks here, not in our city. Too bad. They're going to be anywhere there is a protest.
But we don't need... No, you're missing the point. I'm just not explaining myself well. We don't need the truck. It's not that they don't have trucks. They already have the means to break it up. They just don't want to. The Portland police are told to stand down. The Portland police aren't told to close...
Who tells them that? Who tells them to stand down?
Their police chief, and either the city manager or the mayor and the city council has their backing, because those...
Okay.
So in a lot of cities...
That's what needs to go. Somebody over them.
But the protesters are the ones voting in the current mayor and the city council. I know we're supposed to be like nonpartisan.
Protests will be overridden because of what they're doing, what they've chosen to do. This is going to be overrode by the president, who says, I don't care what city you're in, I don't care who you are, mayor.
You can't do that. Listen,
governor.
Here's the deal. There's a very good, separation of powers, federal, state, and local. There's the Posse Comitatus Act. There's the Insurrection Act. And if these people want to burn down their own neighborhoods, maybe we shouldn't get in the way. Maybe we should just let Portland burn itself to the ground.
Because they're hurting our policemen. They're shooting things at them. Next thing we know, they're going to be catching them on fire. Then is the tune going to change? Is that what it's going to take? No, it should have been stopped back in the George Floyd days, and probably even before that, because we didn't have this kind of crap going on back then.
I agree with all that, too.
Once this started, and nobody did a thing about it. In fact, we've got a policeman sitting in prison right now because he didn't take this from George Floyd, who said, no, I don't have to obey you. I'm not going to get out of my car.
Cassie, you're fantastic. Thank you very much for calling. Let's go to Matt in Fort Worth. You're on WBAP. What do you think about charging the protesters with rioting?
I am 100% for James, but you already hit on the point that we're not going to be able to do it when you have DAs that are not going to prosecute. And it seems like all these riots are inciting in states and town and cities that you got a DA that's not going to charge any of them. Now, the only thing we can do is charge them on the federal level when they're breaking into these federal buildings. But I mean, like I said, I'm 100% of just give them enough rope to hang themselves. Let them burn. Pull the police out of there. Let them burn their own cities to the ground.
Yeah, and I feel the debate like we all have is, there's a lot of people in Portland who don't want that to happen, and they are just sort of innocent bystanders, and they vote against these people. They just happen to lose these elections. It's not really fair that they suffer either, and I agree. It's not really fair that they suffer, but if they suffer enough, they're going to move out, and it'll sort of be a downward spiral.
Absolutely. Like I said, it's a free country. They can move to a more friendly city, and maybe they don't have the means to, but still, it's like you're going to have to get out there and get progressive about getting these liberals out of power, or nothing's going to change. You're just going to be fighting against the system.
What I hear from Portland is sort of an accelerated behavior you see in a lot of major cities where a lot of these people have moved. They just moved to the suburbs and they just drive an hour just so they don't have to live next door to these knuckleheads.
Yes. I mean, but it's so frustrating because it's like we're fighting against a system that just is so insulated. Yeah. It's like every time you turn around, it's like the stuff that comes out of their mouth, they're talking out both sides of their face. It's just so frustrating. I wish we could change it, with a snap of the fingers, but we can't. But I think that, like I said, just let them hang themselves, give them enough rope to hang themselves with, and then because there's still going to be there's still going to be collateral damage. But
no, hey,
anyways,
that's a great call, Matt in Fort Worth. You did well. I also want to say that people on TV that are watching this, it's kind of easy to see who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. We're talking about the No Kings protest over the weekend because, look, it was protest here. Congratulations to the protesters in Dallas, Denton, Fort Worth, Bug Tussle. Y'all seem to behave pretty well. But it wasn't so in some other jurisdictions, and it's the regular cast of characters, the Portland, the Seattle, the Los Angeles. I didn't see San Francisco, but I bet it was a little more excitement than what we had here in the great state of Texas. And I'm tired of seeing this. I think that we should start charging the organizers, the people who fund this, the people who are putting together, passing out signs and flyers and websites and newsletters. You guys need to be charged with inciting a riot. You guys are putting out a mob on the street that isn't following the law, and it's happening multiple times. It's not an accident. It's not like, we intended it to be a peaceful protest, but some bad actors showed up and it got out of hand. Nah, you could do that like once or twice. No, you do that for months and months at a time. I think we had this discussion during the George Floyd Summer of Love. And since no one was charged with inciting a riot, no one was charged with domestic terrorism or some other big crime. And I'm not just talking about the people on the ground. I'm talking about the people wearing the little nerdy reflective vests, the people who are funding this, the people who are running it, the people who are getting the permits. There's a head of the snake. And until you start charging them with something, their incentive is for it to be as bad as possible. Cynthia. Oh, no, wait. I told Al he was next. Al in Garland. You're next up on WBAP. Go.
Yes, James, I am with you, but if you try to go after organizers, they will go after gun manufacturers next. That's a heavy lift. You have to be able to prove they knew that it was going to go south. Or if let's say I sold you a weapon and you go do something bad with it, you can't come after me because you did something dumb. Now, you would have to prove that I knew you would do something stupid. And that's a slippery slope that no one wants to go down.
Well, I don't think it's the same as the gun manufacturer liability, and I'll tell you why, is because it happens over and over and over. And so they don't have the plausible deniability where they can say, well, look, I just set up this rally and it got out of hand. No, this is what happened at the last 6 rallies, and you didn't change anything. So you knew damn well, you should have known damn well. You have no plausible deniability if it's happened over and over. I think your argument would work in a vacuum if we hadn't had no other violent protests before this weekend and this one just popped out. But when it's the regular deal from the same people over and over, it's the same reason they shut down some clubs. You know, how many shootings have to happen at a club before they shut them down? And the reason is it's like kind of the same thing. You are making an unsafe condition, and it's sort of like inciting a riot. If it happens 3 or 4 times, maybe the 4th and 5th time, you need to hire more security or have some material on your website that says, for the love of God and everything holy, do not attack cops. Or your little nerds that are running around with the hall monitor vest on, like they're the safety team in the carpool line at elementary school. If you had them tasked to stopping people that were throwing bricks at cops, but if they're making no effort to stop this and it's happened over and over, I think that's where it crosses the line and differs from gun liability.
But you still have to prove that they knew it was going to go south.
Right, and all I'm relying on there is the last 4 protests that they did. They ended up with stuff on fire, and since they took no extra precautions, any normal person, any common sense, even someone with a low IQ would think, we better do something different or cars are going to catch on fire again, and they didn't.
I still think if you go down that road, they will come after everybody who
they're going to come after guns anyway.
Something bad happening. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. Probably.
Hey, great discussion though, Al. Thanks for calling in. Now, Cynthia Midlothian, you're on WBAP. Your thoughts?
Hi. Thank you so much for always having discussions like this. You cause your listeners to think and come up with ways that maybe we can do something. I appreciate you calling us out to do that. My thought is we have many different planks to maybe go into that we can do individually. So I'm thinking about me, wondering if the police, if Seattle and other places like that are not taking care of their policemen. Texas loves policemen, and we're having trouble getting enough of them. How about letters to those policemen in Washington offering them, come to Texas, work here. We will love you. How about if we put a big advertisement in all of the newspapers? Leave that state. What do you think people would think if they thought we're not going to have probably a police department at all? They don't treat them well. What would they be like without them? Let's let these policemen come and work where they're appreciated.
Boy, this is a ripe recruiting opportunity, sure. Because we have, the HERO amendments that passed in Dallas. We still haven't hired enough cops. You're absolutely right. We're a few hundred behind. So, yeah, a couple billboards, maybe a couple ads. And we don't even, look, I think they know we're probably more pro-cop around here. But let's just send them a link to, like, some of the videos of our protests versus their protests. We'll do a side-by-side. And and you know what? That's a good point. We can maybe score some good cops out of Seattle and Portland right now.
We can, and I'm going to start with talking to my city government and see who they can recommend me going to talk to at the state level. I just want to be sure that there's no litigation issues with writing these letters and saying, come to Texas. I mean, you can't offer them a job per se, but you can say, we're even lowering standards now for you to become a policeman because we can't get enough of you to
just make a TikTok video and tag the Seattle and Portland Police Department in it. I think that's what you need to do.
All right.
Thank you, Cynthia and Midlothian. Let's go to Steve and Justin. You're on WBAP. Go.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Are you on your car's Bluetooth?
No, sir. On my iPhone. Can you hear me now? Okay. Here's the solution. K9. Stick them on them. That's my solution.
All right. I mean, that's not bad. Then I'm not against that, but that doesn't punish the people who are putting this together. And until they have consequences, we're going to continue to see these protests that look like third world country. It's embarrassing, kind of, isn't it? It's like if it's not embarrassing, it should be big cities. And I'm not indicting anybody around here. Thank you very much for your call, Steve. But like Portland, that's an embarrassing look for you guys. Seattle, you're not embarrassed how feral your people are? Look, we have plenty of Democrats. We have millions of Democrats here in North Texas, and they can get together and they can make cutesy signs with fun puns on them, and they can block the streets. And when the police tell them to move, they move. Nothing catches fire. No one looted a Foot Locker. But this goes back to what we've been saying through all of these protests. At what point do you realize you're not the good guys anymore? Shouldn't setting a car on fire make you think, hang on a second, are we the baddies? Because you are. But we continue talking about the protesters here. Aaron in Sherman is next up. And I want to ask you, Aaron, what do you think of my idea of charging the protests that turn into riots? Whoever organized that, they need to get charged with inciting a riot.
I think the protesters should be charged with treason, and I think the organizers should be charged with a RICO charge because they know the outcome of organizing such a thing. Charge them with the higher crime, let them settle out of court for the lower crime of rioting. But the organizers know that this is going to happen from the liberal side because no liberal protested when Barack Obama was taking people out. And, of course, no Republican or conservative put up a fight because we agree with it. So there was no rioting when any Democrat was removing people by the millions. But when the president is a Republican and they remove people by the millions, then there's Democratic rioting because there's four losers. But the organizers know that the violence is going to happen. So to me, that's a RICO charge.
Maybe. You've actually come off a little harder than me. Congratulations. But look, just for people who think you're making this up, this is a news report from 2014, what Aaron is saying.
He's been criticized for being the deporter-in-chief, and now a new report reveals that more than 2 million immigrants were deported under President Obama's administration. According to the Department of Homeland Security, 438,421 deportations were carried out by the Obama administration in 2013. About 198,000 of those were migrants with criminal records. But some 240,000 had no criminal records.
Right. So not only was he deporting people, most of them didn't have any criminal record other than the immigration stuff. So you're making a solid point on yet another double standard there, Aaron.
The Democrats want to say that these people have no criminal record, but I was listening to another show earlier today that made the valid point. The fact that you're in the country illegally is a crime. Whether you have a underlying criminal record or not, the fact that you're here illegally is a crime within itself. So the moment you cross the border without seeking asylum, you are a criminal. The moment I walk into a bank after hours, whether I open the vault or not, I'm a bank robber.
But Aaron, here's what that they're going to say immediately back, and I know because I've been watching this too long. It's not a criminal penalty; it's a civil offense. So no, they're not automatically they're not illegal just for crossing the border. Illegal. Yes, they are. This level of nuance that they have for their side, but you know your side's literally Hitler for saying some of the same words like bloodbath or breathing air just like Hitler. Yeah, it's the grace only goes one way. You're making a good point. I think you might even be a little more hard on him than me because I don't think it's treason. I don't think the guy that's chucking a brick through a Foot Locker window and then going and getting some Air Force Ones is trying to overthrow the government.
Well, I think the guy that is throwing bricks at a ICE agent vehicle or at a Homeland Security vehicle, that is uprising against your government, period.
You know, it's closer to treason or insurrection than anything that happened on January 6th.
Yes, most definitely, because nothing that happened on January 6th was designed to hurt an American governmental official.
Well, maybe the bear spray guy. There was a bear spray guy. Well, we can all agree that he's a bad person and throw him in prison and he shouldn't get a pardon or whatever. But, yeah, all right.
What's going to be sad to see is when Trump leaves office, and I hope this doesn't happen, but a Democrat may take office, and that Democrat is going to remove illegal aliens, you will see no rioting whatsoever because we as conservatives agree with it, and Democrats only hate the message depending on the messenger.
Well, they just riot when they're told to riot. They don't riot when people are deported or, you know, people who don't have any additional criminal charges or families are being separated. They didn't care when it was the other guy. Yeah, so the obvious double standard, it probably doesn't affect them, but there's people who are just kind of barely paying attention, who are sort of not sure what side they're on, and this has to push people onto our side.
Yep, that's why I think the organizers should be charged with organized crime because they're telling these people to protest is leading to violence, and that is organizing a crime. If you can charge a rapper with RICO for having 1,000 bottles of baby oil, you can charge a guy who's saying, hey, go out here, throw bricks, and I'm going to give you some Democratic merch for it. That is organized crime.
There you go. Okay.
Definition.
Man, when you put it like that, I have to agree. Thank you very much. This is Aaron and Sherman, y'all. This is Gene in Willow Park. You're on WBAP. What do you think about charging protesters with crimes? Protest organizers with crimes?
Hey, I think it's a great idea. Yeah. In fact, there's a thing I haven't heard anybody mention, but there in L.A., when they shut down what was part of the interstate system, they immediately invoked Trump's ability to go in there because the interstate system was created by Eisenhower not as a public service, but as a means to move the military around within this country.
So what does that make the charges?
If you're disabling the ability of the military, isn't that treason?
Man, I don't know if that's treason or straight up act of war.
Well, there you go.
That'd be even worse. Then we could send you to Gitmo.
Well, I haven't heard anybody mention that, but I think we've forgotten what the purpose of the interstate system is.
Yeah, maybe so. Well, I mean, that's the bogus reason they said to pass it, because they knew it was unconstitutional, and it's still unconstitutional. But they're like, no, this is for defense purposes only. Really? In case we need to get a tank from Minnesota to Montana in an orderly fashion? Stop it. That was just an excuse to let the government get into the transportation business. And now they've got it all the way to federal funding for bike lanes next to the American Airlines Center that drive me insane. So,
there is that. But I agree with you 100%. Those people ought to be locked up from the top down and just gotten rid of.
Well, you brought us a new good angle to think about, so thank you very much. That's Gene in Willow Park. Round of applause. We're not done with the protests, because there's another round of protests coming up, and you're like, wait a second, didn't they just do it this weekend? Yes, there's another. It's never going to end. There's in 2 weekends from now, not this weekend, but next weekend, there's going to be another round of national protests. Well, what's it about, James? They'll find something. I got on a bunch of mailing lists. I got on a bunch of newsletters for these people, and it's not going to stop. It's not going to. And really, I don't mind that you protest. I didn't mind the protest this weekend in Dallas. You guys were well behaved. Arlington had like 2,000 people out in Arlington, which I thought was huge. Fort Worth had a big one. Denton had a big one. Even out in my hometown of Bugtussle, there was like 200, 300 people packing a park there. And around here, we were quite well behaved. So no problems there. But when things start catching fire and people are chucking bricks through windows and looting stores and whatnot, we've got to do a better job of cracking down, because that's not okay. And there's a lot of innocent people in those jurisdictions. Like, I feel like part of me thinks, well, look, if Team Blue constituents want to go to Team Blue businesses and Team Blue cities and wreck shop, then they're really only hurting themselves. But it's not really a good way to arrange society now, is it? So I think the ones that get out of hand, we've got to start dropping the hammer on these people. And that includes inciting a riot or domestic terrorism or whatever the charges is. These protests that routinely get out of control, we've got to do something about that. Johnny, and is this supposed to be Capel and you just spell terrible? Is that what that is?
No, there's a town called Caperl.
Caperl. Okay, I thought maybe Garrett had just slipped an L in there. What the heck is Caperl?
No. Well, it's pretty much ranches for the most part.
All right. Well, I can't make fun of anyone's small town. Go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking everything begets from money. So if you are inciting a riot, you throw the first brick, the fines ought to be, as far as the crime, you're inciting a riot, it could go bad. There should be $10,000 minimum, 5 years in prison, something ridiculous where nobody's that stupid. Well, we're talking about
some people that. Okay, so let's bounce this back and forth from here to Caperl. Caperl? Am I saying it right? Caperl. All right, I'll get it right. I can be trained. So if we charge the people on the ground, and they're the ones who have to pay for it, they're the ones who go to. Yeah, I think it has to be the organizers that get charged with that. Now,
all the way.
Now we don't do that necessarily for criminal charges. We do that for you can civilly sue people like that. Now that's going to be a big pain in the butt, because now the franchise owner of the Foot Locker or Baskin Robbins or whatever got looted, they have to cover the cost until they win the case and are made whole. So that seems to be a shortcoming there, because lawfare takes money to execute. So I'm wondering what we do about that. And I don't have all the answers, Johnny, but I think you and I are sort of on the same page.
Well, just like an arsonist, it burns down a house, and you go, oh, my gosh, I'm going to go after that guy. You got to pay for what you caused. Well, he burnt down 1,700 acres. Should that guy not be responsible? Just like whoever moved up the chain.
No, you're asking the right questions. But what happens in the real world is it's just some meth head that's going to get thrown in jail and doesn't have the money to compensate you anyway. So even if you
way up the chain.
Okay, now we agree, but
it's like a criminal, just like the mafia. Okay,
Rico.
I told Lefty to go bump the guy. Rico, yeah.
Rico, okay.
That guy. Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you on that. I think we're on the same page here. We've got to find some way to bring the hammer down on the people who are organizing this, because the way I see it, the incentive isn't for it to stop or even be peaceful. The worse it is, the better it is for the organizers. The more attention they get, the more they get the public sort of scared and thinking, look, we just need to do whatever it is to stop this. Look, if we have to stop deportations, we'll stop it. It's not worth all this, or whatever the complaint of the day is.
Well, just like the deportations, I don't understand why they're not making money at it, because the way to stop it is to go, okay, if you hire an illegal, there's a $10,000 a day fine. They will be leaving in droves, because if you're taking away the employer, what is the employees going to do?
Yes.
Start?
Yeah. I agree. It's already illegal, though. So what are we going to do? Make it illegaler?
You charge the manufacturers, the industries that are hiring. I'm telling you, I've been to chicken farms and
I know. Look, out in Buck Tussle, we have the Pilgrim's Pride plants, we have the Tyson's chicken plants,
exactly.
we have but the thing is it's already illegal, and you say, well, we should, we should, but we're not. So what do we change to make that happen?
Charge them.
It's already illegal. We're just not enforcing the laws. That's the crazy part about this, is so many of the problems that you and I identify, Johnny, would be, we don't need another law to pass them to solve it. We just need to enforce the existing laws.
We go after the money. That's how it all begins. They're all after making more money. You hit them in their pocketbook. They know you're not going to do anything to the law. Well, let's just hit them in the pocketbook.
I hear you.
That's what this is all about.
I hear you. All right, we're on the same page down in Caperl. Thank you, sir. Caperl.
Okay, have a good one.
Thanks, sir. Gary Chatfield, you're on WBAP. Go.
Hey, it's Gary in Chatfield. How you doing?
Hey, Gary.
Yeah, just a quick thing. 8, Section 1325, it is a federal offense to jump the border. It is punishable by a fine and 6 months in prison and immediate deportation. And the state that you commit the crime in can pursue civil penalties.
Yes, so that's a civil crime. It's not like a crime.
Well, no, it is a federal crime, punishable. The feds can put you in jail for 6 months.
I'm not arguing. I'm just saying what the clapback is. Like the Sonny Hossins on The View are like, it's not even really illegal. They're not even criminals. It's just a civil penalty. It's like, go. Yeah.
It's the word and. It's the word and. It's a civil. It's federal crime and a civil penalty pursued by, if the state wants to, and like if you try to marry a girl fraudulently to stay in the country, or you get on welfare, the state can come at you for that. The feds put you in jail and throw you out.
Oh, I totally agree. I just wish more people got the message, cool. Gary. You're absolutely right. Thanks, sir. Callers are good today. What's wrong with y'all?
The James Show Podcast.